Let me get my. So delayed reaction here as my Facebook connects. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Forgiving the Girl Inside, a Matter of the Heart. I'm your hostess, Lisa Drennan. And today we have the beautiful Jenn Taylor, mom of 18, with us. She has written a blog, Mom's Running It, for over 10 years. She's a published author, host of At A Crossroads with the Naked Podcaster, and transformational coach for Christian women and a motivational speaker. She is an NLP practitioner and has 15 plus years in the foster care sector as both a parent and a trainer. So welcome, Jenn. I just love, we were pre-show having a little conversation about some of the changes, massive changes that she has, and being a mom of 18, you know, the title of the show is Roll with the Changes. So I imagine there's a lot of changes, a lot of growth, a lot of all these different personalities that come together in your life. So to be flexible and adaptable is probably like one of your two things that you focus on.
Definitely. I know a couple of years ago, my husband's brother asked me, like, are you as laid back as you seem? And I said, ask your brother. I mean, I'll lie about myself without realizing we want to be the best version of ourselves, right? And so he asked Dane, and Dane said she's the most laid back person I've ever met. And I don't think that that's 100% true 100% of the time. I don't think anything is, but definitely I'm blessed that part of my personality kind of innately, either it's part of who I am or I learned. And I think a combination with having so many kids in the house, you kind of have to adapt. And the other thing that I got good at, a couple things, and we can take this in any direction that you want. One thing is knowing that how I'm doing things isn't necessarily the best way, and learning to think out of the box and how to get things accomplished that are creating stress. I got really good at that. I think that was a necessity more than an innate skill, but I did get really good at that. Taking anything that was creating stress and thinking, how can I eliminate this as a stress source? Is that possible? And that was a really good skill to learn, and it helped me roll with it. And being great with time management and just asking for help, which I think as women and as moms, we are really, really horrible at. And it was not an innate part of my personality. I had to push myself to ask for help and to accept help. But I think that that's a big deal among women. So, and I'll give you an example of that. I had a friend probably, over 15 years ago say, are you good at everything you do? And I said, yeah, I don't do stuff I'm not good at. That's not like a snotty, non-humble thing to say. I don't.
No, like, it's an awesome answer.
And do I have a CPA? I don't want to do my taxes. I don't want to figure it out. I don't want to be good at it. I don't know how, and I don't want to know how. So I find someone who's a resource. When I say I don't do the things that I'm not good at, I actually do. I have to vacuum today, and I don't love vacuuming. But, like we do a lot of things that we don't do, but I want to focus on my zone of genius, and I want other people to get to focus on their zone of genius. My CPA is awesome at what she does. And that's why she's been my CPA for 15 years. And I want her to shine in her zone of genius. And I don't want to ever have to do my taxes again. So I just decided, like a long, long time ago, I'm not good at everything. So what am I not good at? And how can I find resources? And that does tie into the women aren't good at asking for help. And I became really good at asking for help. Because we like to be the person that brings the dinner after someone has a baby, but we don't like to be the person that accepts the dinner after we have a baby, right?
Yeah, and I don't like doing the meal thing.
Well, that's like a super low. That's a low key example of just like how people ask if they can help and how resistant we are to allow people to help. And I'm like, yep, bring the freaking dinner 100% every single time.
And dinner, that gluten-free, sugar-free. What oil did you use to prepare that?
I mean, insert dinner here, right? Like at whatever thing, people tend to, I ask if people need help with something that I'm good at helping with. I'm not going to help you with something I'm terrible at helping with. I'm going to help you. And I think that's part of rolling with it. That's part of being flexible. And when I'm helping you, I'm in my zone of genius and I feel like I'm reaping all these benefits. I get a moment to shine. I get seen. I get to do something that's helpful, right? I get to take some of your burden off you. Well, that's a great feeling. And by not allowing other people to do that, we're robbing them of their blessing. By not being able to say, yes, I want help, either accepting it or asking for it. By not doing that, we are robbing other people of their blessing. We're not seeing them and we're not allowing them to shine. And it helps you. So
exactly. Well, we're definitely made for community, and there's a reason why all of our parts are different. If you think, someone had shared with me the other day about what body part would you represent in the, like in the body of Christ. And she said she was a pancreas, and, the pancreas cleanses and has that important function of, processing things out, flushing them out. And I was like, oh, I've never heard it described that way. And I just did pick up the book, The Body Keeping Score. I don't know, this is something in our practice. I know with your NLP, my Aroma Freedom Practitioner, we use this. And I thought, I need to read the whole book. So I've only read parts of it. And I thought, what body part would I be? And I'm definitely the heart, where, just pumping in that life and that gratitude and that, just what does your heart say? Like, we are designed to know exactly what we need and want. And why are we afraid to ask for things? Why are we afraid to roll with the changes? Because it's different, it's new, and our minds tell us external validation. Oh, you can't do that. You're not good enough. You're not this. The power of mirror talk is so incredibly, has such a force on us. So to be able to roll with the changes and just to say, hey, especially when you have so many things coming at you. And so tell us what is it like to live with 18 different personalities ranging from all these different ages, and stay calm and collected? Like, what do you do when you must do me time or something? Because I imagine you have to be exhausted. You're working, you're taking care of the house, you're taking care of the kids. I imagine you're the taxi driver, you're the cook, the maid, this, that. I mean, there's so many hats that you wear.
I think, first of all, we've never had more than 12 kids at home at the same time. 11 and 12, that number, I've had 11 or 12 kids for years in the household. And what's different is that we're down to one. All my kids are adults now, except for the last one. So I've gotten through, my oldest biological daughter turns 30 in April. And so, yes, lots of personalities. First of all, I'm not always calm. So I don't know why we would even want to. I'm very human and very imperfect, like everyone else. I'm originally from New England. I'm loud. I'm a loud personality. And I know that a huge part of that comes from my personality, and a huge part comes from where I grew up. So if I get excited, I'll be talking in the kitchen and my husband's like, you're getting real loud. And I'm not angry. I'm excited. And if I could change any part of my personality, and a part I've tried to change is to just quiet down my voice a little bit. That equated to I was never abusive in any way. I don't think I was ever abusive in what I said. However, I was loud. So I was the yeller. I was the parent that raised my voice. And so I wasn't always calm and perfect. There's not, my personality isn't serenity. I'm very extroverted. I'm very upbeat. I'm super optimistic. I'm expressive of my feelings, and that can be taken as a good thing or a bad thing, but there wasn't this calm serenity, and I didn't do a perfect job. Here's what I learned as a parent. It's totally possible to mess up and apologize to your kids. And as far as so many different personalities, I think that was so fun, because I'm one personality and there's pros and cons to all of it. I mean, we have a couple kids that are off the charts with their intelligence. Their IQ scores are just freaking off the charts. And they're the ones that, when the door says push and the door says pull and they're pushing, and it's like School of the Gifted. Like you can't even open the door correctly, but you're brilliant. And I think that makes it so fun. If you think about just like a group of friends that you have, and how much you love each other and how great they are, but how dynamically different your personalities are. It's the same in a house with kids. I like my kids to have a voice. So we did a lot of, we called them family council, where at dinner, we, you know, if there were things that were changing, we brought it up, and it wasn't necessarily taking a vote, but it was that their voice really mattered. And the chores, the rules, the consequences, my kids had a voice in a lot of that. And yeah, I mean, I think managing that many people in one house, we eventually became minimalist because we felt so overwhelmed by the space that we lived in, and that there was just so much clutter. I mean, even if everybody has one pair of shoes, there's 14 pairs of shoes and 12 backpacks, and like, people don't have one pair of shoes. So we were just so overwhelmed by the volume of people and belongings that we got rid of a lot of our stuff so that it was more free and easy. Like I said earlier, I think living with that many people, I recognize what stressors were. And I have an example. I used to load the dishwasher and think, how is it possible that we've used every single cup in this house every single day? Like, we, you know, a child will get a drink of water and they'll take a sip and they'll put it down, and then they don't know which cup is theirs, so they have to get a new cup. And it sounds so silly, but when you have like 11 or 12 children and a couple adults living in your home, there's like 14 people and people come to visit, like the volume of cups was overwhelming to me. And I can't stop my kids from wanting a drink. And I didn't, you know, I mean, I wasn't going to Sharpie mark or solo cups. And so I color coded my kids. So I had to take situations that were really stressful, like washing cups, and figure out, okay, how do I make it so that this isn't stressful anymore? And so Brianna was purple, you know, Alana was orange, Nikki was yellow, Taylor was blue. They all chose a color, and I bought like Rubbermaid cups in the rainbow, and everyone picked a color, and that was their color. And that's how I bypass that stress. So like, with all the different personalities and stuff going on, you have to, I mean, with 2 kids or 20 kids, it doesn't matter. You have to figure out, like, where's the stress? Is it that toys are all over the floor and it's a racket to pick it up? Then give them less toy options.
Right.
I mean, like,
recognizing the triggers is huge.
right.
Because once you can recognize that trigger and stop and think, okay, what can I do differently? Like you said, and come up with a solution. And I love that you invited your kids to be part of that solution, because then they're going to be more willing to participate and obey and listen, to help out, to have that sense of community and unison in the household. What was it like with the fighting when they would break out into arguments and like, who like this? No, that's not my fault. This is your fault. And those conversations must have been fun.
Interesting is that, you know, people have wanted to come over. They would be like, can I just come to your house? I just want to sit and watch the show, you know? And the number one thing that people said is, it's not as loud as I thought it was going to be. I think you take one child or 2 children playing, and you think it's going to be multiplied by like now 12 kids. And that actually, the opposite tends to happen. What happened more than fighting, that wasn't real frequent, honestly. I don't remember having to navigate that a lot. I'm sure like it comes up and things happen, but what did happen, because our kids are real close in age. So I have a 12-year-old daughter at home, and there's an 8-year gap. And so from that, like, you know, 19, 20-year-old to 34, I have 20 to 34. There's like almost all of my kids, like 16 out of 18 are in like a 15-year period of time. And not all of them live there. So here's the thing. In my house, what happened is they teamed up with different people. So sometimes Gabby would be playing with Abby and Ashley, and sometimes she would play with Kezzy and Sam, and sometimes she would play with Gabe or Isaiah. And they kind of rotated who they connected with. And also older kids helped younger kids. So kind of like a one-room schoolhouse where you have multi-ages. One, they were close together. And 2, I kind of treated it like that. Like, you need to read for 30 minutes and he needs to be read to. So read, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Did you homeschool all of them?
I did not, I homeschooled some of them for about 10 years. Then I didn't homeschool for about 15 years. And now I'm homeschooling again. It depends on the school system, the kids, the attitudes, whether I'm working outside in the corporate world or whether I'm earning money from home. I mean, like there's so many different variables, right? But yes, I have homeschooled for 12 years total, and not, and not all of them and not every age. And, so it's kind of case by case dependent. I did foster care for a long time. 5 of the kids are adopted. 5 of the kids are kids that kind of stayed with us really long term. They call me mom, and I would adopt them. I wasn't able to. And so with those 10 kids with adoption and foster care, you also can't do homeschool. I mean, you're limited in what you can do. So I was following different rules for different situations with different kids. And, like 4 of my kids technically are stepchildren. And so that looked different because 3 of them have a biological mom. And so my family is such an amalgam. It's not like, oh, we're going to be a homeschool family or we're going to do this. We were really meeting the needs of different situations and different kids. And so I would have never wanted to homeschool all of them. I mean, I would have been a 1-room schoolhouse. However, we paired kids up for chores. We paired kids up for homework. I need to make my life easier and their life easier. And everything needs to work. Everything needs to function. And so it was very much like older kids shadow younger kids, and in their schoolwork and in their chore work and learning how to do it. And I did everything with them. When it was time to do chores, I was doing chores. I wasn't like, go do this. Unless it's their room or unless it's something specific that they took out. We kind of did things more communally in my house. And I think that took a lot of pressure off. And that is, you can do all of those things with 1 or 2 kids. Actually, I think 1 is the hardest. So I'll take 12 over 1 any day. Because
why do you think that?
1 wants your attention all the time. You are everything to that 1 child. They can't go play with a sibling or do something. And when you have multiple kids, they kind of play together. So, I mean, honestly, my house was quieter than most people thought. And my kids just there wasn't a lot of fighting. They would just kind of separate and go play with somebody else and regroup later. And they kind of rotated through. So there wasn't as much fighting. It wasn't like, oh, 2 kids fight this much, 12 is going to be that many times more, or the volume is going to be that. It actually was the opposite.
That's incredible. And I'm glad you brought up the only child, because there are a lot of people in the audience have that only child, or there's such an age gap in between their kids. Like there might be 8, 10, 12 years apart from having, I have a couple of friends that have, 21-year-old and a 10-year-old. And that one child they want, who am I going to play with? And if you don't get them, stimulated, get them into, socialization, like what would you suggest for them? Do you have any suggestions about this one child? You said you have 1 child left at home.
Yeah.
Are you finding that they demand more of their time, or because they're older, they don't?
Yes. And I knew that. I mean, I gave birth, to my first daughter, and it was 4 years until another child came into the house. I gave birth to my second daughter and did foster care. I was licensed for foster care already. We hadn't gotten our first placement when she was born. And so I had a 4-year gap. I did that only child for 4 years. And now I'm doing it again. Right. And so it is like, if you're a single child parent, cut yourself some slack. And yes, it's the same thing with people who are homeschooled. They're like, well, how is your child getting socialization? I mean, you just need to take extra steps to make sure that that's happening, and that it's happening in a positive way, and know that when your kids are home, they really are, you are it for them. And so what's interesting, and you have to find ways that you all like to interact. So all of our kids moved out, right? The last one moves out. And it was kind of a mass exodus because they were so close in age. Like I have 2 25-year-olds and 2 23-year-olds and 2 22-year-olds and 3 21-year-olds and a 19-year-old and an 18-year-old. They're 8 months apart. Like it was a mass exodus. I had 3 in diapers, and I felt like I was always breastfeeding for 11 years. And like I was always pregnant, breastfeeding, and and diapers for years, and I loved it. And on the flip side of it, we had this mass exodus. And um, so my youngest, we have all these board games, and she's like, "Hey, let's play a game." And there was a point where Dane and I looked at each other, and I'm like, "Do you like playing board games?" And he's like, I hate them. I hate board games. I'm like, I also hate board games. And, our daughter's like, "Why do we have so many board games?" And I'm like, "Because you guys love board games, and they got played all the time." But think back and remember, how many times was I sitting at that board game? Like, our kids played board games at the table together all the time while I was cooking and doing stuff. And I was engaged in the sense that I was like, "Yeah, all right, go." And I don't actually like to play board games. And Dane does. And our daughter's like, "What a rip." Like, now here I am ready to play a board game. We've got stacks of them, and there's nobody to play with. And so we really had to figure out, okay, but we do like card games, and we do like memory games, and we do like, so, I mean, we really had to sit down with her. We went through all the board games and gave them away to all of her siblings. When you go to their house, you can play those. That's great. And we have like a small little container now of stuff we like to do, because things that all three of us like to do, there aren't that many. It's not the same. I mean, we had a shelf of board games and stuff, and the kids played them all the time. So I think with one child, you have to really figure out, like, sometimes you have to do things you don't like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes
Well, how do you get your me time in though? So especially like, I mean, I know a lot of moms who are challenged by getting me time in, even if they try to get up 30 minutes before everyone else in the household, their kids senses it and they're up and at it. So were you, as you're raising your family, as you were fostering, were you able to find that me time so you can pour into others the way you did?
It was really, really important for me, actually. And I knew that. So when my kids were little, I was blessed. We had like this little gym in the house. It wasn't massive. It was like those all-in-one machine things. I had a poster on the wall, and I'm going to age myself. I did VHS tapes. And I did those with the kids all running around and during nap time. And basically, because it was in the house and in the playroom, I was just able to kind of do it. And it was interrupted, but it was good. It worked really, really well. And when I found myself as a single mom, that's when things really had to change. And so I'm a runner. And I was lucky that I had kids, some of the older kids. My oldest was 12 or 13. She knew how to babysit. She was CPR certified. And so I would get up at 4:30 in the morning and go running. I'm running at 5 o'clock in the morning in the dark. And I would I would either do it with a group, meet a group and run, which I've done for years, for the last like 17 years, for years of that. I have a group that I run with. Or I would write down my route and not vary from it. My kids rode their bikes with me. I mean, I pushed a stroller for a while. That's not really a lot of fun. And then I had kids old enough to babysit, so I could leave them and take off for a run for 30 minutes. And I did it super early in the morning. I'm a morning person, and I need to get it out of the way before they're gone. So I would leave a note that, Bree would know the night before I was going running at 5 o'clock. I'd write my route. I'd leave it on the table. I had to do things that you don't think about, like carrying your phone. I had to do that. I had to carry my phone, I had to have safety precautions set up for my kids. And so I went running in the morning. I did almost everything in the morning. If you're a night person, then just flip it to night after bedtime. But my time was important to me, and my kids grew up with that. And here's the great thing about when your kids grow up with someone who's super active and does stuff on a very regular basis, is that they would recognize, and they would, even in the afternoon, they'd say, "Mommy, do you need to go for a run?" That doesn't mean I was being a horrible parent. I'm what a witch and I'm yelling and screaming at all. It means that they saw that I was the best version of myself when I took 30 minutes to do something that I loved, and I was teaching them that it's an exercise and that I'm outside, which science and brain chemistry and all of that. But I also invited them to be part of it. My kids, for running, they learned how to run an aid station. They learned how to volunteer. There was one race I was doing, and they were doing an aid station. And my son at the time was probably 12, 14. And he looked at Dane and he said, "Something's wrong. She should already be here." And because they knew my running speed and everything so well, that he knew that I was having that either something went wrong in that race, or I was having a slower day. Honestly, it was not like anything big and major, but that's how tuned in they were, because they were part of it. And so they volunteered, they ran aid stations. I entered them in races. They competed against each other and against me, and they knew, they rode their bikes with me. Then when they got older, they started running with me, and I slowed down with them, and then they passed me. I mean, like, it was, I think whatever you're interested in, kids grow up learning about, because they're subjected to it. And my kids were subjected to a mom who was a kind of a crazy runner, and, did different stuff. And I involved them in that. And they knew in the beginning, like, I don't care if you grow up and you run. That's not the point. The point is you're learning how to, you leave my house knowing how to cook, how to clean, how to budget, how to take care of yourself, how to make healthy choices, how to be, like, that's it. And then what you do with it is up to you. But many of my kids do run, and differently than I do, or, but they do, because they learned that you will look better, you will feel better, you're more grounded, you're a better version of yourself if you take care of yourself. I have a daughter with a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old. And she comes over several times a week because we have a treadmill, and, the baby's 7 months old and she wants to build up her 1 mile time. And then she comes over and I watch the kids so she can do that. Why? Because she saw how much of a difference it made in your mentality if you do take some time and do something to yourself. And I see
30 minutes makes a huge difference.
And I see that she needs somebody to help her watch the kids while she does that. So that, I mean, really, whatever your thing is, we all the same time in the day, you have to carve it out. That does mean I got up earlier. I didn't get as much sleep. I was in bed earlier. I was tired sometimes. And you have to try to, again, out of the box ways. My kids used to say, do you want to go for a run? I'm like, yeah. Do you want to pick the route? And because my kids took the bus, they would take me on routes to our neighborhood that the bus took. Like, this is how the bus drops the kids off on the way home. And, like, just make it fun. Make it fun and include them, but get your time in.
Yeah, I've heard that. I heard you say that a lot. Just include them, help them make the decisions, and definitely take the me time. And, if they do wake up when you are doing your me time, invite them in. Like, this is mommy's me time. Let's, what can you do during mommy's me time? I saw someone's story today where they were working out and their 2 little kids were working out with them. They had their own little mats, so incorporating that and just understanding, yes, this is, and when you model that, they know that it's important. I know my kids, I didn't take me time until my youngest was 14. He's going to be 24 soon. And all my kids take me time. They're like, Mom, I need me time. Like, go do me time. And it just helps you flourish, it helps you rest. And having those healthy boundaries, regardless of what age your child is. I mean, in a sense, you're, forgiving yourself, saying, you're like, you know what, I need to do this because I'm going to be better. I'm going to be able to pour into you more, and I'm going to be happier and joy-filled and more balanced when I take care of me. Because when you don't take care of yourself, there's no way you can take care of, especially a child who demands so much. You need that attention, you need that rest, you need that space where you can kind of just be who you are and do what you want to do and take care of your body. So that's so important. I love how you balanced all of that, and you tweaked things as they went. Like, if something didn't work, you partnered them up, you got the color code come. So you've identified, I think that's the key, is identifying that stressor and saying, okay, you know what, this isn't working. What can we do better? Because I don't want to dirty every single dish in the house. And you would think something that's huge. I mean, I know when our kids come to stay, because we're empty nesters now, but when our kids come to stay, everything multiplies. And I can't even imagine what the laundry was like with all those people in the household.
Laundry was huge. Here's an interesting thing. When I was doing laundry when the kids were little, I mean, this is a great example of doing something the same way because it's worked, but it's not the best way, right? And when they were little, I used to do darks and lights, right? I would put all the laundry together. We even had this laundry chute in the house at the time. And, like, everybody, there was a basket per room. And I just gathered up everybody's stuff, and then I would wash it, dry it, then separate it and put it away. And one of the times that I had a baby, my now ex-husband did the laundry, and he said, we need to get each child a laundry basket color coded when we could, like Taylor had a blue laundry basket because his color was blue, but it made it so easy, right? So color code the laundry baskets as much as we can. Each child has to have their own. You can go a little bit longer before you do their laundry, just by a couple days, until it's one full load. But unless there's something white that needs to be in a hot white load that's bleached, you wash their laundry, dry their laundry, put it in their basket and put it away. And it saved me a ton of time because they had gotten old enough and their clothes weren't little and they weren't sharing as much. And I didn't recognize that I was actually adding time and effort to how I was doing it because our situation changed. And when my ex-husband took it over, he's like, okay, we're not going to do one basket per room. We're doing one basket per child. And you just, you wash Taylor's, you dry Taylor's, you put Taylor's in his basket, you bring it to his room. And I switched it like that. And it was, it saved me a ton of time. So I think also you just have to kind of recognize where you have things that are time sucks and where you have things that are stress triggers. And I don't know what yours are. Mine were cups and laundry. How I did laundry worked great at first and then not. Yeah, there's a lot of laundry. I did a minimum. There's a minimum of 11 loads a week, a minimum.
Yeah.
That was just like, if nothing extra happened at all, I did a minimum of 11 loads a week. Cause you have like 12 kids and 2 adults. And so, and we had a basket that was white and it was in the laundry room, and anybody that needed whites washed would put it in that basket. And I just did the whites when they were done. And then the kids came and got their stuff basically out of the clean. But I mean, really, I'm very big into time management. I teach time management. I love time management. I love using your calendar because I had so many people and so many things to do, and I ran like a Costco family, right? I had like this volume business, and I had to figure out, how can I get all of these things done and not feel totally stressed and overwhelmed. And so I loved time management, and I loved out of the box ways to reduce stress. So you just have to recognize. And as far as, I want to go back to the rolling with it, because you and I had a conversation when we were pre-gaming about like how much things in life change. Like my laundry changed. It worked great and then it didn't work great. Like that's a little example, right? And how resistant we are sometimes of those changes without realizing, especially when God's knocking on the door and we're like, yeah, no one's home. God, we're not here, right? I can't hear you right now, right? And I think that resistance is something that's a time suck and a stress suck. And when you become aware of your language, and you mentioned self-talk, and that's massive in that book and how we hold things. So you have to, my recommendation for rolling with it, for recognizing stressors, for time management is all going to be listen to your internal monologue. What things are you saying? I mean, I probably was saying, holy cow, like, how are there so many freaking cups? I don't even, that was probably something I was saying all the time, like every day, walking around my house, like finding cups everywhere, until I stopped and went, wait, if this is something that's an internal monologue, if I am saying this all the time, you need to learn to recognize what you're saying, because that's your language is going to be where you recognize you're not listening to God. Something is stressing you out. You need to determine how to use your time better. You need to figure out something out of the box. We are triggering ourselves, and we just need to be aware of it. I'm good at rolling with it because I'm just good at, I've become good. I've taught myself how to recognize my language.
Yeah, me too. It took me a while. And it was funny because when I first learned the system, I call it STIR: stop, think, identify, and recognize. So stop and think about what you're thinking. Identify what is it that you're being, receiving, where in your body do you feel it? recognize what that emotion is and where the beliefs come from. And then you take that action so that you can get that new result instead of just playing the same old, I'm going to call it a record player. I think they call them vinyls nowadays. The same old story that you play over and over that keeps you stuck in this pattern. And, we all know the definition of insanity, but when you can stop and think about what you're thinking, it's really massive movement to do something differently. Like, okay, this is driving me crazy. I need to stop. And so that's a great reminder, is to stir those emotions, those thoughts, so that you can, and our body knows, our intuition is so powerful. Like we had said earlier about knowing what is right and knowing what is good for us and saying no, let our yes be yes and our no be no. I want to just wrap up here with you have some awesome suggestions, especially for like, if you only have that one child at home, dividing your time and just really setting those healthy boundaries so that, your child needs your attention, but having a schedule, having time management. When I hear time management, I'm like, I don't do time management. I put things on my calendar. I get my goals done for the day. I have my priorities. But I like to just I just like to refer to them as things that I need to do. And I don't even like to use the word need. I recently switched the word from need to get. Things that I get to do brings me joy.
Big.
So letting go of things that no longer serve me, but just because I've done something, like when my kids were little, I had to clean the house every single Saturday. OCD. I mean, I clean from the corners to the bottom. I mean, you're talking baseboards, top of the sill, the doors and stuff. And I was a maniac about it. I was just like, we're not going anywhere. Like, the kids were old enough to help, and it was so miserable. And then if somebody made a mess, it would drive me nuts. And it was just like, and as it got to be teenagers, like, just go out. I'm going to clean the house when you're done. Now I'm like, I can clean the house every other week, which is totally different than how, I was. And all my kids are good housekeepers, but they don't stress about it, which I'm very thankful for, because I thought, man, I remember when I was growing up, my mom was like, this house has to be so clean and you have to dust and you have to do that. And I hate it. I hate dusting. I don't like to clean. And you're like, well, hire a maid. Well, I don't like anyone else cleaning my house either. So maybe it's something I have to work through. But knowing what doesn't serve you, what you don't enjoy doing, and finding a solution, like maybe set your timer for 15 minutes and do it. Like, I vacuumed yesterday and I said to myself, okay, I'm going to vacuum this 2 rooms and then I'm done. And then I vacuumed the 2 rooms and I went and did something I loved. And then I finished the house, so I just kind of gave myself permission to take those breaks, to listen to my intuition and say, you know what, this isn't serving my time right now. So just, those are some awesome tips that you had shared with us in that time management sense. If you can call it something else, what would you call it besides time management, for those of us who don't like that word?
Oh, wow. I like that word. It makes me feel like I have control over my life and my day and what I'm doing. I would just say, I guess, have fun ways to use your calendar. And
calendar fun.
Because like, we used to play music and I would crank it and we'd have dance parties in the kitchen. So when I'm like, okay, it's time to do the chores and clean the kitchen, it wasn't like drudgery. I think you can also, have fun with your calendar. So how can you take something you don't like and make it fun? Do you want to listen to a podcast while you're vacuuming? Do you want, like, what would make that more enjoyable? And we had dance parties while we cleaned. So
that, like Mary Poppins.
A little more hip hop than Mary Poppins.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing just your story and your life and how you managed all that. And it's so amazing, and definitely rolling with a lot of changes. What's the best way for people to connect with you? I know you have your podcast, which we can put that link.
I do. You know what? My website is momsrunningit.com. And basically you can contact me through there. My email is listed through there, and every social media that I'm on. So then you get to choose what's your favorite way to reach out. I think what people need to remember is that if you want it the most direct, send an email, because messages on social media can get lost, but basically just reach out any way you want. But Moms Running It is the hub for Like that's where the podcast is. That's where everything lives. And so anything you never wanted to know about me or how to get in touch with me is all there.
Awesome. We'll put that in the description. Well, thank you so much for sharing again. We'll get that. So if you're listening, you want to connect with Jenn, she does have an awesome program. She's just revamped. So go check out her website, send her an email, connect with her, find out all the strategies that she used to keep it together, to be calm, cool, and collected as a mom of 18. And remember, mindset is the crux of all that we do. It's a matter of the heart.